welcome to There Will Always Be Another Book. Today, a bit of a special. I am not reviewing just one book, I'm reviewing a trilogy of books. This is the Southern Reach trilogy by VanderMeer, which comprises the books Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. And yeah, I would say I have mixed feelings on this book series because Annihilation I adore. I think it's just an amazing 5-star book. Authority, you probably expect this. This is like a 3-star at best. And Acceptance, I really don't know. I don't know if this is a 3 or a 4-star book. I think I generously gave it a 4-star book just because it was better than Authority. But yeah, my overall opinion of the series is that Annihilation does such an amazing world-building job and kind of takes us on this story with these characters and builds up this really creepy, ambiguous world that has a lot of unanswered questions, but by the time I got to the end of the trilogy, I couldn't really help but feel like I didn't need those answers because these books just have the answers to the questions. And I was just like, man, Annihilation is such a great standalone book, and I still recommend it. And if you're the sort of person who gets really curious about wanting to know those answers, then I guess it is good that they are here. But I just can't help the fact that Annihilation is just the #1 standout book. If I was to reread anything, I would reread this again. I've already read this twice and these two only once. But yeah, that's my general impression. I'll go on to a plot summary of the whole trilogy, just so that I can move through it really quickly, and then I'll talk about some things that I liked and and so on and so forth. But before I do that, actually, I will just talk about the movie, because the movie Annihilation was how I got onto these books, and I saw the movie first. I adored it. I really loved it. And directed by Alex Garland, as this friggin' book cover so much wants to let me know every time. Now Emotion, you look at it, let's just riot against designing book covers with these disgusting fake stickers. This is not a sticker, you can't peel it off. But anyway, so after watching the movie and really enjoying it, I went and read the book, and I loved it because it was a lot of the similar things, but also very different. Of course, the movie is just standalone, and so it sort of attempts to wrap everything up, whereas this, I mean, obviously Jeff knew or guessed that it was going to be the start of a trilogy, so there are things, like I already mentioned, that are more ambiguous or left unanswered, and they get expounded upon in these later books. But the main idea, like, if you've seen the movie, a lot of the things in the book are going to seem familiar. There's a mysterious zone called Area X where the government has been sending in teams to find out what's happened, and no one's come back. The reason the main character gets involved is because suddenly someone does come back. The previous team, a soldier went in, and he was the husband of the main character, who in the movie she's called Lena, but she doesn't have a name in the books. She's just called the biologist, and that's another really cool thing that I loved about like the difference between the movie and the books, was that in the books there's this really big, like, maintaining a kind of professional distance where none of the team members give their names, or I don't even think they know each other's names. Oh, I might have to reconfirm that. I think they might know, but they're not allowed to say it. But anyway, yeah, because there's a similar formula. There's a psychologist, there's a biologist, there's a like a surveyor, I think, if I remember correctly. There was going to be a linguist, but she bailed out, and it gets answered. You find out why at the end of the first book. But yeah, other little things. So in the movie, there's this great, like, you see the crossing point of Area X, and it's this really awesome, like, psychedelic zone that they just sort of walk through. But then after they walk through, they have this like this memory loss, and they realize they've already been in there for like a week, but they can't remember. It's a little bit different in this, where actually they need to get hypnotized by the psychologist in order to walk through it. And that's another really cool difference. I really think the book and the movie complement each other super, super well. And even with the ending is quite different. So Annihilation in the movie has this, the context or the connotation is that you know, it's referring to the alien kind of species or organism that arrived on Earth, but in this, Annihilation is actually a reference to textually, it's a reference to the hypnotizing and the brainwashing that the psychologist uses. But I would say that there are still similar themes in terms of, you know, annihilation that you see in the movie also comes up in the book. But a big difference is that, as opposed to what happens in the book, where it focuses very much on like, okay, we're going to go to this area and that's going to determine the fate of this person in the book, this person in the group, this area is this person in the group, etc. Which, don't get me wrong, this is really, really good, and it's a thing that I love I love a lot about the movie. In this one, they come across something called the Tower, which is sort of like this feature tunnel in the ground that is like a mirror of what the lighthouse is. And a lot of this first book is them exploring and going deep into this tunnel to find some mysterious thingamabobs. This sort of like entity that is, well, I mean, spoiler alert, it's the lighthouse keeper. And there's this amazing introduction, or like just this amazing like vibe setting where there are these like religious sermons written on the wall, but they don't match to anything. They're not actually from the Bible, but it's written in such a it's written in a similar way, and it's like that whole passage is so entrancing and like it's so great to read. But yeah, I'll leave out some details, because you can still go through and read it and enjoy it, hopefully without in light of those spoilers. But the end of this book, pretty much, as opposed to in the movie where Lena finds out that her husband got cloned, and the clone is the one that came back to her, and in the movie it's unclear as to whether the original Lena or the clone Lena came back, and it's sort of like it doesn't matter. In this one, when she gets to the lighthouse, instead of finding... I just realized I was talking before about like, oh, you can still read it if you enjoy it. Stop here if you don't want any like end of the book spoilers, and later on, because I am going to talk about these two books as well. She finds another really interesting imagery at the lighthouse. She doesn't find a, you know, intergalactic being. She just finds piles of journals, all of the journals from all of the previous people, and she finds her husband's journal, and it talks about how he sailed away into this area. And so the book pretty much ends with her sailing away, trying to find her husband. And that's it. That's the end of the book. Solid wrap up. And I was like, perfect. Moving on to Authority. This is like one of those books it's boring because it's meant to be boring, which makes it good, but it doesn't change the fact that it's boring. And so it introduces a new character whose name, oh man, I can't remember his real name, but he wants to be known as Control, you know, and he comes in pretty much through some organization that Control is interacting with via his mother. He becomes the new head of Area X because the psychologist who went in is not there anymore. And he's just like bumbling through trying to find all of this like what the hell is happening, what anything's referring to, but everybody who's there is just being incredibly secretive. He's finding mysterious things, like there's a plant in a drawer that will just not die, which is like a specimen that was taken back from Area X. And like, you know, like it was boring, but there was some cool stuff. The only problem was that like it really builds up like it builds up the boredom so much that you almost start to think like this book could not possibly be this boring. Like there could not be nothing happening. And then some really, really cool things do happen at the end, especially with some of the other workers, like the biologist, not a biologist, but like the guy who did the paintings. If you've read the book, you know, like that's really cool, but I don't know if that payoff was worth like 300 pages of utter boredom to get to. And yeah, I don't know how much more I can say about the book, because it just is. That's all that's the only impression that it made on me, except that at the end there's this just crazy like exploding of Area X, where Area X like expands and comes to where the base is, and you see like a clone sort of version of the psychologist, but importantly as well, a clone of the biologist who is in the third book becomes a main character, who's referred to as Ghostbird, comes out as well. Ghostbird and Control hook up, like they become a team, you know, and then they go for one last journey into Area X in this book, where because Ghostbird knows that she's the clone, she's not the real biologist, and so she wants to go in and find out what's happening. Control has just spent all of this book being utterly bored to death, and he wants to know what's happening as well. But a cool, all right, well, I don't know if it's cool, but like a thing that happens in this book is that the chapters alternate between Saul, who is the lighthouse keeper, and his story, with the young girl who, if I remember correctly, is the psychologist, and what's happening with Control and Ghostbird and their journey going through. They almost do a victory lap going through places like the tower and the swamp with the screaming beast or entity, and it's weird. It's sort of just like explaining all of the things, and I'm just like, I didn't need these answers. But regarding the alternating chapters, I at first was like, I don't know which one of these I enjoy more, but then I was like, I don't know which one of these I enjoy less, and it was like, well, none of them are really outstanding. Like they're not really making that deep of an impression on me. And overall, I just thought that the end of the whole series was not anywhere near as strong as the end of the first book. And yeah, I don't know if you, but like, I can't deny that if you want the answers, they are there, so you can go and just read them, and like you might find them enjoyable. But yeah, you're just kind of, I can't help but feel like these are just sort of appendices or like appendages to this great, amazing standalone science fiction novel. But yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. I really could just like rant and rave about Annihilation for ages. But Acceptance just felt like, Acceptance being the third book, just felt like sort of unwanted or unneeded explanations or conclusions for this great world that he built up. And Authority was just, again, boring because it needed to be boring, because it matches with how the main character is experiencing the world. And don't get me wrong, there is some cool stuff which you can pick out, like some cool brainwashing, hypnotizing that the main character is going through. But again, like so much of this book is so much of Authority is just so boring that it's hard to read, and I'll probably never reread it. But you know, all in all, it's a 4 out of 4. The whole trilogy is a 4 out of 4. Annihilation's a 5-star book. But yeah, the whole conglomerate, I don't regret it because I don't really, I seldom regret reading books. But yeah, Annihilation, Authority, and Acceptance. A great standalone book. If you happen to be a nerd about finding the answers to the world building, these also exist. But in terms of how short this is, the goodness is what's the word I'm looking for? It's like improportionate, man, you know, you would think with how much I read, I would understand basic words. But this book is very good considering how short it is, and I highly recommend it. And I somewhat recommend the rest of the books in the series. But that's all I wanted to say about the Southern Reach trilogy. Give me your opinions on it. I don't know if there's something I missed. I feel like my basic cursory googling is like, my impression is the one that I heard a lot, that Annihilation is the best. But yeah, tell me if there's anything that I missed, or like a particularly great thing in Acceptance. Tell me if there was anything in Authority aside from the end that was worth reading. And don't forget to always keep reading, because there will always be another book. And I'll see you in the next video.